Welcome to the Literally First Class podcast, where I will teach you how to overcome anxiety and achieve somatic success. I'm your host, Keri Ford. I'm a somatic success and holistic life coach here to bring humor, insight, and wisdom to the modern day woman that wants to feel alive in her daily life. You ready? Come on, I saved you a seat in first class. Today on this episode, I'm going to share with you 3 specific things I would do with you if you were my client in different sessions, of course, to help you move through an upper limit. And before I get into all that and we dive in, those of you that feel like you are scratching the surface of your potential, that you have so much more to give, that you thought you would be further along, further ahead than you are right now, that this isn't quite the way you imagined it, that despite the success you've already created on paper, that there's just so much more that you have inside you, and yet you don't quite know what that thing is or what is potentially keeping you stuck here. And maybe it doesn't even feel like stuck, but maybe it just feels like confused, lacking clarity, or disenchanted, right? You're not inspired. You're just like, well, I've already created success and I'm just like maintaining what I have. And maybe that feels good enough, but then the first part wouldn't be applicable to you, where you feel like there is something else, something missing despite all of that. And maybe you have success in business, but you don't have it in relationships. Or maybe you have success in relationships, but you don't have it in health. Untapped potential is like driving a race car down the track at half speed. So frustrating. It's kind of like that tip of the tongue feeling when you're in the middle of a conversation with someone and you're trying to remember the name of that song or that one movie, and you're searching every inch of your brain and going back and replaying that same part of the conversation. If you could just get back to that part in the conversation or remember where you were, and whoop, it left you. So now you're searching for that word, for that name, and you can't quite seem to put your finger on it. You know that feeling? So it's like it's right there, and yet it's not there. And that's the same feeling that we get when we are not operating at our maximum potential. There's nothing more infuriating. In fact, I spent many years myself, I feel like, barely scratching the surface, and I still feel like I'm just getting started. I know how to identify those upper limits in my body now. I know what they feel like, so they no longer override me. I know exactly how to break through my own glass ceilings to shift the needle in a way that changes the whole game. And I'm going to share with you a couple of those 3 ways, specifically, a couple of those things that have really changed the game for me. I talked about in one of my previous episodes about my, how I danced back and forth with, like, I was a personal trainer, then I went back to consulting, then I went back to coaching again and training, then I went back to consulting again. And it was so frustrating to feel like every time I went back to consulting, despite my 6-figure income and literally winning awards, global awards, recognition, accolades, climbing the corporate ladder fast. At 26, I was managing an international department. I mean, in a matter of months. I had already won awards. I mean, despite all of those things, I just could not shake the feeling that there was something else, that I was meant for more, that I was settling despite it looking like success to other people, especially my family, if we're being honest, and my parents, which, an entirely different conversation. But it's like this constant nudging and pulling on your heart that you just know. You don't know quite yet what it's going to look like, but you just know that there's something more, something else, something bigger. It's not from a place of selfishness or lack of gratitude. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You're extremely grateful. You feel like you should be more grateful, and you might even feel like there's something wrong with you for not being okay with where you're at. Where you're at is great, but where you're going is going to be better because it's going to be even more aligned. It's going to be even more up-leveled, right? It's going to have you feel more alive. And so when you have the tools, the somatic strategies, and all the things that I wish I fucking had a decade ago, more than that now, everything changes. When you have tools like I have now, like I teach my clients inside our Apex Leadership Mastery Academy, inside our retreats, inside my one-on-one containers, when I take you through the Somatic Success Method and I teach you all the somatic strategies and tools that not only you begin to understand, but actually put into practice for yourself and your team, everything changes. The whole landscape is shifted. Because now you are not the same person that identifies with the same belief system that you once had. And now you have a practice and a method to help actually move the needle. Because awareness isn't the issue. This is what I find most women come to me with. They're like, well, I'm so aware. I've done a ton of work on myself. I have a therapist. I've done years of personal development. I've listened to all the podcasts. I've signed up for coaching programs. And yet nothing's changing, right? So we can be aware, but if the action isn't changing, then nothing is changing, right? Awareness without action doesn't equal change. Action coupled with awareness is where we start to change. So we've got to do something different. So what is that? And this is where most of you end up coming to me and you say, okay, listen, I'm watching what you're doing. I'm looking at all these results that you're sharing about your clients. And I've seen, even people that they've met in real life, like I've seen your results with this woman that I've known forever. And there's something different, awakened, expressed, amplified about her. And like, I don't know what it is, but I want that. And so it's not that much of a secret, except for that you have to be willing to try something different. Somatic work is a little bit different. So I couple that with high performance coaching and I bring it into what I call my somatic success method. So when you have these tools and you have these specific modalities, you can literally reprogram anything. You can rewrite belief systems that you once identified to and with, and now you can start to anchor to a future point in time and beliefs that you actually want to have. Right? So that you don't sabotage, so that you don't feel fearful about that next level. Also, you can rewire your nervous system so that it quite literally starts to respond differently to the same stimuli or the same previous triggers that no longer trigger you. That's the marker of growth in nervous system rewiring, where things that once used to trigger us no longer do. Not because we've learned how to avoid and numb out, but because we've actually changed from a cellular level, the way our body responds and therefore the way we behave in relationship to that dynamic, to that pattern, to that trigger, right? So we actually rewire it, okay? So this is what I teach inside all of my programs. And if you haven't yet, I'm just going to pause you here before I go into sharing these 3 things. And I'm going to invite you to click the link below. If anything I have said sounds interesting, and that you're wanting to maximize your potential and amplify your impact from a more aligned and more authentic space because you're truly ready to become that 1% woman, I want you to click the link below and apply for Apex. We have a brand new 6-month option, or you can opt for the 12-month option, which most women do. I've had women in the program for over 2 years and they still come to every single call because they say not only is the energy a beautiful anchoring, but they love the community so much. And they said they're not having these kinds of conversations anywhere, and that they literally structure their day life meetings around our weekly calls every single week. So they're that powerful, and they have shifted the needle to help women get signed as like paid speakers, to have nearly 50K launches that they've never had before, to be doing things that actually have them step into their next level identity and maximize their potential so that they can drive the race car down the track at full speed ahead in the way that they always thought they were capable of doing. So click that link and go ahead and apply. And I talk about this all the time, but I have applications for you and for me. It's got to be a vibe check. This needs to be the right room for you. You need to be the right person, right woman for the room. It's both. That's why the program is so powerful. Not because it's a you can't sit with us group, but because it's extremely curated, and the level of excellence that I'm going to invite you into is next level. That's part of the initiation. So go ahead and apply. This message sponsored by Po Hung Yu. Have you ever thought about microdosing before? Maybe you've even seen documentaries like Fantastic Fungi or How to Change Your Mind on Netflix. By the way, I have a funny story about the Fantastic Fungi, but you're going to have to ask me offline. Or maybe you've heard about the extensive research happening in the best universities and the evidence showing how mushrooms are game-changing for those with anxiety, depression, ADHD, and even PTSD. So many female leaders and moms have jumped on the microdosing bandwagon to help them better manage modern-day stress. I want to introduce you to our new brand partner, Po Hung Yu. She's a self-mastery mentor, microdosing guide, and a former acupuncturist. And as a successful woman like me, like you, imagine a life where your brain and your nervous system can just relax. That's exactly what happens when you microdose and you're guided by an experienced facilitator. So you can actually be present and enjoy your life minus the anxiety, overwhelm, and stress. The best part is you don't feel high, there's no psychedelic effect, and no one will know. You can still work, be with your kids, drive, exercise, and live your normal day-to-day life. But you'll still receive all of the amazing benefits of mushrooms, like increasing neuroplasticity, flow, creativity, focus, and even your connection and intimacy with your loved ones. Not only will you receive a 15-minute consult where Po will tell you exactly how this process works so you can decide if it's a fit for you, but you'll also get a bonus of $500 off and a complimentary root cause assessment call worth over $800 when you decide to work with Po. Click the link below in the show notes to get started today. Okay, if you don't have a pen and paper out, go ahead and get that out now. And I'm literally going to give you 3 somatic success strategies. This is part of many parts of the method that I use. But if you were my client right now, and I would do these in 3 totally different sessions to help you experience a breakthrough in terms of your glass ceiling and help you begin to rewrite your belief systems. Okay, the first one is I would ask you to track your timeline. The question I would ask you, and you can write this down, is can you remember a time when you felt expansive or unlimited? And the reason I'm asking you that is because I want you to start to build capacity, recognition, and a positive experience, a knowingness, a familiarity around an already pleasant experience. We already know struggle and fear and hardship, especially when you're at an upper limit. That's where fear is the loudest. What I'm doing here is bringing you away from the fear and asking you to remember a time where you didn't feel fear in an expansive and unlimited energy. Okay, so then as you remember that, I want you to notice where you feel that inside your body, like the location. And then in the location, what sensations do you feel? So those are the 3 questions of that first part. Can you remember a time you felt expansive or unlimited? Great. Have that memory. Think about it. As you remember that, where do you feel it inside your body? Location. And what sensations do you feel around it? Sensations are not happy. What does happy feel like? Oh, warm, bubbly, prickly, purpley, right? Those are sensations. Sensations being anything of the 5 ways that we experience life. Taste, touch, smell, all that. So what sensations do you feel? And then this would expand your positive sensations. This would have you spend a little time here remembering that to build capacity for more good feelings. Why? Because the more you can remember that, oh yeah, I have evidence for this. I know this place in myself, the less the fear will take over and literally override your nervous system and have you only act from fear. It'll start to balance the scales and tip the scales in a much more centered way where you won't be thrown off, right? So that's number one. Number two, and I've taught this inside my 5-day nervous system reset. So if that's something that you want to go through and you want to learn a little bit more about the tangible somatic tools and the specific ways that I help people navigate the specific stress responses in their body, you can go ahead and grab that. I'll put the link below. But it's covered in my 5-day reset, which had so much information in there. There were 5 30-minute trainings and people were like, holy shit, I wish I knew this before. And they told me that they still practice those things and it's been an absolute game changer. So you would do the presencing exercise, right? This is a practice in quite literally orienting to the here and now using specific sensory prompts that I'm going to give you. So the first sensory prompt is, can you feel your back against the chair? And then can you allow yourself to feel that support? Okay, that's really important because if you can orient, if you can connect to the here and the now, the moment right now, the present moment, you can get out of anxiety, which is a future thing. You can get out of the past, which also can be an anxiety thing or a worry thing. And you can just connect to simply what is. It is a great way to connect to peace, right? But it's also a really great way to just simply reconnect to yourself, to start to listen to what's happening right now, right? If we're really focused on the future, we're not really connected to what's happening now. And if we're thinking about the past, we're recycling it into the present moment. We're not rewriting the future then, we're just recycling the past, right? If we're making present day decisions only off of past fears, we are literally writing our new future based on our past. So we're not changing it. We're not rewiring it. And we're not seeing what happens when we do something different to the pattern. The other prompt you could try is, what is the most distant sound you hear? Again, going back to the first one, this is a sensory experience, right? So looking around your room, listening to the sounds in your current space and reality, like, oh, wow, there's like, I hear an airplane, I hear birds. There's something very grounding about connecting to like what's happening right now versus worrying about what's next and not really being connected to yourself. So this nurtures the practice and the capacity of learning to be in the moment you're in instead of thinking ahead of what's next, right? You already know all that. Like, what's next? We know that whole talk. But here's what's important. How this can limit you is if you're constantly also in the future, is it's really hard to keep your energy up and be truly more productive. You could actually be 10 times more productive probably if you're connected to the right now, because your focus goes up, your energy goes up, you're not leaking energy anywhere because you're literally connected to right now. You get the thing done, you check it off your list, and you're not worried about everything else, right? Have you ever had those days where you feel like there are 85 things to do and you never did one of them on your list really particularly well? So you're kind of showing up like 50% capacity in like 100 different areas. That's not 1% zone. So I want to invite you back to the 1% zone. This is part of that transformation and becoming. And then the last one, number 3, is where we're going to explore your specific upper limit, right? So we're going to create this is a practice in somatic work where we start to create some distance and space around something, especially if you feel too close to it, literally like you're in the emotion, you're in the fear. So if you were to imagine a big screen, like kind of like a drive-up movie, and it's like an empty field with a big screen. If you were to imagine a big screen with you living in the biggest purpose God is calling you to, what do you see? And then I would ask you now, as you see that, what is happening inside your body? Now, depending on how far or close you are to the screen, you might notice a shift of what happens inside your body. So for example, if you're standing further and more distant, you have more space between you and that next big dream, you might feel more peace in your body, more at ease, more connected to yourself. As you start to invite yourself to walk toward the screen and that vision gets closer, and you could even put like a significant other up on the screen if you're trying to manifest your partner, your dream partner. As you start to get closer to like your dream guy, then notice what happens in your body. Oh God, like maybe you start to have this moment of panic. Maybe there's some other sensation you feel, right? So we notice where you possibly don't feel safe to have this reality. And then we start to explore your nervous system so we can rewire it. This is where the real work begins. That's just the entry point. The real work that we do inside Apex, the Leadership Mastery Academy, or inside any of my programs always begins with this. Not necessarily that particular exercise, but we find an entry point. You tell me what you are desiring, or we get clear on that. We highlight and we notice the gap, and then we rewire everything that says that you can't have that, the thing that you want, whatever that thing is, right? So we have to notice the shift as you get closer to that vision. Again, whether it's a person or a big dream, something that is like your next level, right? Your big purpose. And then we can rewire it so that you can move beyond these limits and that you don't continue to play out this loop, which is despite wanting it, you also are pushing it away. Because that's the frequency of fear. Well, I want it, but it feels far. But it's not actually far because time is an illusion, right? It's just a more healed, more connected version of you that actually knows, not just like deep down knowing, but like feels connected to that being possible and feeling safe about it, feeling excited and good about it, not having fear override it and, overcast it. Because the minute I tell you to start stepping closer to that projector, and then you tell me like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling like, I don't know that I want to go that close, or I want to like run away, or I start to freeze. Now we've got some somatic information that I can actually work with inside the academy and wherever you decide to join me, right? So if you want to go deeper with that, that's the entry point. That's exactly where the work begins. Was this helpful? Let me know. Please, if you have time in this moment, can you just, go exit out of this and give us a review? Let me know what's helpful about these episodes. We are in a transition of pouring even more value into you. And I would love to know what it is that you're taking away from these episodes so that more women just like you can have me in their ears. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you. All right. Keep it first class, and I'll see you on the next episode.
I hope you enjoyed your flight, and I'll see you on board again soon.
Seriously, though, thanks for listening. If you're ready to take this work deeper and upgrade your mind, I want to invite you to join us inside my Millionaire Mindset program. This is where you'll start using my guided meditations to help you overcome anxiety and experience even more abundance. When you join, you'll have access to my entire audio library. Head over to elevatewithkeri.com and we'll see you inside.